It's Ollie. I'm a commercial advisor for founder led recruitment and services businesses. The market is noisy and we help simplify. Diagnose first, fix second. Today, I want to talk you through why I think founder led recruitment and services businesses end up solving the wrong problem and why that's costing them time, money, and energy without even realizing it. I've spent nearly 20 years inside recruitment and services businesses, from startups to businesses turning over tens of millions. I've built teams, I've led leaders, and one thing that has become increasingly obvious: the market has never been noisier. Open LinkedIn, and within 5 minutes, you'll have 50 different people telling you 50 different ways how to grow your business. One person tells you the answer is AI. The next tell you it's marketing, or someone says outbound, another says inbound. Someone tells you to hire a sales director or replace your CRM. Someone tells you to launch a new service. None of these things are necessarily wrong. They're just the answers to questions that nobody has asked yet. Because the real question is, are you solving the right problem? One thing I've noticed over the years is founders are incredibly good at taking action. In fact, sometimes they're too good. Business owners don't usually struggle motivation wise, and they don't struggle with work ethic. If anything, they struggle because they're constantly trying to improve something. And the problem isn't effort, it's direction. Business slows down, launch something. Revenue dips, hire someone. Pipeline feels weak, buy another tool. Margins fail, reduce your prices. The instincts is always do something, anything, keep moving, because standing still feels uncomfortable. But activity and progress, they aren't the same thing. Working hard doesn't automatically mean you're moving in the right direction. In fact, if you're solving the wrong problem, working harder simply takes you further in the wrong direction. And that's where I think a lot of founders get stuck. So here's what I see instead. Most founders don't have a motivation problem or a work ethic problem. They don't have an ideas problem, and they certainly don't have an execution problem. They typically have a diagnosis problem. They're simply too close to the business to see what's actually causing the issue. And if the diagnosis is wrong, the solution always will be too. So think about it. Revenue becomes unpredictable. Is that a sales problem? Maybe. Or maybe 80% of the revenue comes from three clients. The answer isn't more sales training, it's reducing commercial risk. And the founder can't switch off. Is that because they need a managing director? Maybe. Or maybe important decisions still go through them because ownership has never properly been defined. The answer isn't another senior hire. It's reducing founder dependency. The team isn't performing consistently. Is that because you've hired the wrong people? Maybe. Or maybe everyone is working to a different standard because the business has never actually built one. Different symptom, different diagnosis, different solution. So, this is one of the biggest lessons that I've learned, and that's growth rarely fixes businesses, it exposes them. Growth doesn't create cracks, it simply shines a brighter light on the cracks that were already there. So if forecast is weak at 2 million, it's going to be much weaker when you get to 5. If decisions are inconsistent today, they'll become even more inconsistency the more people that join your business. If your biggest client represents too much of your revenue today, that risk only becomes more expensive as you grow. So growth shines a brighter light on problems that already exist. It doesn't make them disappear. And that's why I think so many founders become frustrated, not because they aren't working hard and not because they lack ambition, but because they keep trying to solve the symptoms instead of solving causes. When the diagnosis is wrong, the fix usually is too. This is exactly why I started the Sales and Talent Lab. Not to tell founders how to run their business, not to add another framework, and definitely not to add more noise. I started it because I saw too many founders spending huge amounts of time, money, and energy fixing problems that weren't actually the problem. Hiring before they were ready, changing systems before understanding the process, blaming people when the same issue was structure, trying to grow before building control. That's expensive, not just financially, but emotionally, because founders begin questioning themselves, questioning their leadership, questioning their people, questioning whether they're good enough, when in reality, they've simply been trying to solve the wrong thing. So people often ask me, what does Sales and Talent Lab do? And the answer is actually quite simple. We help founders identify what's holding their business back so they know exactly what needs to change before they waste time, money, and energy fixing the wrong problem. And sometimes that confirms that they're actually heading in the right direction. And then sometimes it completely changes the conversation. But either way, the founder leaves with clarity, and clarity leads to better decisions. So everything we do comes back to three areas: commercial control, structural control, and leadership control. Because if you can understand where revenue really comes from, and if your business operates consistently, and if leadership doesn't just depend on one person, that means revenue, profit, and cash become far more predictable. So that's what we're trying to build. We're not businesses that simply grow, businesses that actually work, businesses where revenue isn't a surprise, businesses where decisions don't depend on a few, businesses where success isn't built around a handful of clients or a handful of people. That's what control looks like. And if you take one thing from this video, let it be this. So when something isn't working in your business, don't actually ask, what should we do? Ask, what are we actually trying to solve? Because they are two completely different questions. One leads towards activity and the other leads towards clarity. And clarity nearly always leads to better decisions. So I genuinely believe that most founder-led recruitment and services business have the ability and capability to grow. What they often don't have is enough clarity. They're too close to the business, too busy solving problems to understand what's actually causing it. And until they do, they're always reacting, never really taking control. So here's my challenge for you. The next time something isn't working, don't just rush to buy another tool. Don't immediately hire another person, or just don't assume the answer is more activity. Just stop. Ask yourself one simple question: what problem am I actually trying to solve? And you might actually be surprised how often the answer changes. So I'm Ollie from the Sales and Talent Lab, and I help founders and services businesses identify what's really holding them back so they know exactly what needs to change before they waste time, money, and energy fixing the wrong problem. The market is noisy. We simplify. Diagnose first, fix second. In the next episode, I'm going to be explaining why your next senior hire could be your most expensive mistake.